Hey guys, John P. here. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you my thoughts and opinions, as well as some logic, let's not leave that out, on new versus used watches. I've been in watches for such a long time now, both as a collector and a dealer at Del Rey Watch, where we buy, sell, and trade, that I've picked up more than just some insight, but some real world experience on both ends of the deal, right? As a collector buying, but also as a dealer selling and buying as well, on which of these two categories of watches would be better for different situations. In other words, I'm going to be breaking down some qualities here: experience, knowledge, price, speed, and functionality for the watches, and share with you my thoughts on those things for the watches of that type so that you can better make a decision when it comes to buying watches. Now, some of this information is going to be pretty entry level, but I'm going to be injecting my experience and some more advanced things that I've picked up along the way for those of you that have been in kind of the watch area for a while to help you as well. On the wrist today, I have an Omega Seamaster Aquaterra, Good Planet Titanium, really awesome watch. Really love this watch. You can see more about this watch as well as my others and other things that I do over on my Instagram, The Real John P. So before we jump into these categories, let's kind of get the elephant right out of the room. To begin with, we'll talk quickly and briefly about Rolex Certified PreOwned, kind of a new thing that's happening, and it's building out across authorized dealers in the world, but it's new, and I'll share with you basically this type of program is for the person that goes to Best Buy, buys, a microwave and opts in for the $20 insurance plan at the checkout. That's the type of person that I think should be attracted to this program. So if you're that guy, hey, not saying anything negative, but it generally doesn't make sense. If you like to think you're over analytical and things bother you in that kind of a way, maybe it works for you. Otherwise, in no way, shape, or form does it really matter. It doesn't add value on the back end when you go to sell the watch. I don't see any dealers paying a premium for these watches. And in fact, it's talked about all the time between dealers. Hey, are you guys paying a premium? Nope, that's a joke. LOL. That's how the conversation goes. So let's jump into it. The first category is going to be experience. What type of experience can you anticipate from the new dealers versus the used dealers? Now, I'll also share there's going to be some overlap, right? New dealers are starting to get into pre-owned or used, and used dealers sometimes have a new watch. So this is going to be kind of the more traditional, hey, you walk into an AD to buy a new watch versus I go to a pre-owned dealer to buy a watch. That's going to be how we break it down. So for new watches, the experience is going to be possibly phenomenal depending on the brand. Now, it's fair to say collectors have been rubbed the wrong way when it comes to Rolex and Patek Philippe, depending on where they are, who was working, so on. You get the idea. But generally, the new experience is going to be much more over the top and more of kind of stroking your ego. Oh, yes, this and that. Would you like a drink? Would you like some champagne? Would you like to try this on? Would you like to do literally anything else besides buy the watch while you're trying on the watch until they hard close you into buying the watch? You go into a Breitling boutique and they try to feed you sandwiches. If you want to go to a Breitling boutique to eat a sandwich, you should develop other hobbies because that is kind of silly in my opinion. You should go there to buy the watch that you want and maybe try it on. But to go there just casually, hey, I'm bored, let me go eat a sandwich at Breitling, that's just kind of ridiculous in my opinion. But overall, you're going to get that kind of, touchy-feely, hands-on experience where they're going to try to make you feel special on average. So if you like that, new is for you. Now, when it comes to pre-owned, that's not going to be the case very likely, right? When it comes to pre-owned watches, it's much more about what you're looking for as opposed to an experience which is designed to check those boxes and please as many people as possible. Storefronts are for people to walk in and be attracted, get pulled in, and maybe buy something. Sure, there are going to be knowledgeable buyers as well, but when you get into pre-owned, collectors really know their stuff. People know so much about watches. They do their homework sometimes for months, a year on the watch that they want, and then they send the email when they're ready to buy, or they just buy it. So the experience is way different, certainly, but it's not going to be negative generally as long as it's, a long-standing pre-owned dealer. If they're a new entrant to the game, anything's up in the air. But once again, total different experience. And certainly, we'll talk about that later, but it goes to show in the ultimate pricing of the watch. Now, rolling on from experience, we have the knowledge. Something that I see collectors get disappointed in all the time. I see it in the comments below, and I see it when they reach out to us, is that oftentimes collectors go to the authorized dealer or the boutique, and they are expecting the person that's the salesperson to know a lot about watches, to be passionate about the watches, and to just kind of know everything in the watch space, like maybe that collector does or seemingly does, but that's far and few between. Generally, people working at the boutiques and authorized dealers are just oftentimes salespeople looking to make a living and make ends meet. Maybe they put in an application at the mall at a dozen places, and the authorized dealer is the one that called them back because they like their personality and their people skills. And of course, they chose that over Auntie Anne's pretzel. But that's generally sometimes what you're dealing with. And so I see people get let down a lot. But when you get into pre-owned dealers or online dealers, those that focus a little bit more on the collectors, back catalogs, things like that, just because of the volume and the amount of watches and the variance in the brands and the models, pre-owned dealers are generally forced to learn at least something about each and every watch that they have in stock. I think it's pretty rare to find a reputable pre-owned dealer that hasn't done so, because at some point they had to price that watch to determine if they want to stock it, and researching the watch is the way that you do it. So for those that are looking to kind of scratch their itch a little bit more and truly, receive some type of knowledge or education on that particular model, maybe how it works, a bit of a history, that would be difficult to do at a new dealer compared to much more likely at a pre-owned or a used dealer. Now, this is going to roll us on to the price. Now, I think it's fair to say that generally used things cost less than new things. Someone else takes the hit rolling the car off the lot. Though things have changed over the last 5 years, and although Rolex and Patek Philippe and some other desirable models and references have come down in pricing, some of them still are a little bit, if not more than a little bit, higher in the pre-owned market than new, because they cannot be purchased new by most people in most places in the world. But generally speaking, the new watches, you're going to be paying an ultra-high premium because things like the marketing budget to have, Jim Clooney be in the advertisements is baked into the price. All of the different distribution markups, as well as the import fees, things like that are baked into these high premiums you pay when you buy a new watch compared to a used watch. And so generally, the used watches are going to be, maybe under 40% of the retail price of that watch when it came out, especially if the watch gets older, back catalog, a little bit more wear and tear. But with the exception of those hot watches that we just mentioned, pre-owned is just going to be a much lower price. Now, what about the speed, right? There's the speed, there's the quality, and there's the price, right? If we want to talk about, those of you out there that are in business or economics, you have the triangle where, a product can go into either section of a triangle, speed, quality, or price. So when we talk about the speed, when you go to, a new dealer, an authorized dealer, there's generally not a lot of incentive for them to move quickly. For the hot watches especially, they're only allocated so many of those by the brands. They cannot just place unlimited orders for the latest Omega Seamaster. They cannot place unlimited orders for Rolex watches. They just can't do it. There's production volume limits and allocation. And when you get away from the hot watches and brands, sure, maybe they can place an order. But I'll tell you, generally from the new dealers, you have people that are working that are maybe not incentivized by getting you the watch that you want any quicker, because someone's going to take it anyway. So for you independently, individually, as a collector, it it just doesn't matter to them. Whereas when you work with a used dealer, of course, you may have to, depending on the watch you want, especially if it's back catalog. They are incentivized much more because there is there is almost kind of an unlimited supply of used watches out there, right? There's more in circulation and people are looking to sell and trade in watches every day. So depending on the watch, there's kind of always this backlog of inventory you could bring in should you sell that one on the shelf. And also, a lot of times, the owners of the business have direct connection to the sales process. So there's much more of an incentive because it goes directly into the different metrics, KPIs, the performance and the income that they want to see for themselves and their family. They're much more connected to it as opposed to all the different chains of command, especially when you get into, the publicly traded authorized dealers or the new watch dealers. It becomes a little bit different. So there's much more incentive to quickly make a sale because it generally directly goes to the person that owns the company. So if you're looking to get a watch a little bit quicker, especially when you get into those desirable watches, you just go pre-owned if you want it right away. Maybe you'll pay a premium with the Rolex and so on, but you're going to get it pretty much the next day, whereas you may wait a year or more at your Rolex dealer. Now we're going to talk about functionality. I think far too often people are skeptical or cautious when it comes to the functionality of pre-owned watches, but I'll share with you a little bit of a different perspective. Okay, maybe a little bit biased because, I have been in the pre-owned segment for a long time now, but I'll share with you when it comes to the new watches, there's very high assurance that the watch is going to come from the factory within the spec, probably chronometer spec, even if it's not a rated COSC certified chronometer or a Matas certified watch, it's probably still going to keep specs like that. The movements are coming out of the factories these days with great timekeeping and functionality. But that being said, I do hear all of the time where sometimes collectors buy a watch new from the authorized dealer or the boutique, and they just try it on, but they didn't really pay attention. And then when they get it home, it just doesn't work. And that is because at the authorized dealers and the boutiques, they are not putting the watch on a time grapher before you put it on their wrist. They pretty much just unbox it and throw it in the showcase if it ever even makes it into the showcase. But when you get into pre-owned, reputation is everything. Pre-owned dealers cannot sell a broken watch because it'll get talked about on the internet. People will make videos. People will leave negative Google reviews, and that will directly reflect on the business and how they do business. So generally, reputable dealers have properly Swiss skilled watchmakers that are going to review the watch when it comes in, service it, especially if it needs be, replace the parts if necessary. But also before that watch goes out the door after you purchase it, maybe it was in the safe for 30 days. That watch is going to be inspected on the way out as well to make sure that it's going in the box and it's going in the box working properly. And not only that, it's on camera. When watches are boxed up and put out, most dealers, especially reputable ones, they have cameras that zoom in, high-res cameras that zoom in on the packaging process to make sure that those checks are being done, but also for insurance reasons. So a little bit different here. I would actually argue that when it comes to pre-owned, a lot more attention to detail has to be done just because of the nature of that type of watch. So guys, this has been my take on new watches versus used watches. Of course, there are so many nuances and variations and variants in the types of watches, the complications, the brands, the models, where the watch is, so many different things that we could cover. But in this video, I tried to boil it down to the things and the insight and perspectives that I felt made the most sense to share with you, and also to guide you in the best way possible to make the decision where and when possible in new versus used watches. So like I said, other things that we could consider, but I think this should narrow it down and help you to make the decision. But do you guys have any other suggestions? Maybe something I left out? I know there's a few things. Please leave that in the comments below for your fellow collectors. And I'd also love to chime in. You can find me on Instagram, TheRealJohnP, and we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P.